Got a Koto Markie here, ignore the background. For various reasons I can't get out in the car today, the mobile studio. And my home studio isn't quite ready yet. I'm in the middle of painting the wall, and I've used match pots and things, so the wall's all blotchy. So I couldn't do it there. So today you get a crappy background and you have to look at my ugly mug. Why have I got my headphones on? I don't need headphones on, do I? It's just because I happen to have them on. So this is going to be a weird one, really, because I'm going to do a movie review, and all my movie reviews are a bit weird. In many ways, they're the worst movie reviews ever. In other ways, they could be the best, because being the kind of neurodivergent person that I am, I sometimes miss obvious things, but I sometimes pick out, things that other people don't notice or don't spot. So sometimes I have something really interesting to say, and I think I do on this one. So bear with me, stick with me. It will be worth it. So I call this series Earley's Late Reviews. Earley is my surname. It's not spelled the same as early in the morning, but said the same. And I usually get to things quite late in terms of like music and movies and novels and stuff like that, because I process things quite slowly. So like with music, I have to listen to things an awful lot before I can really sort of enjoy them and get into the groove of them. So so I'm very, very slow. So and the movie that I want to talk about is very slow. So that's probably why I like it and why it suits me. So I have just watched the movie Nefarious, and so I said before in other videos, I'm a horror fan. Let's stay at that curtain. I move that out of the way. It's sort of got a life of its own. I'm a horror fan, but I could list horror films that are actually any good on the fingers of one finger, as I usually say. I need to find another analogy, don't I? Because I keep overusing that one. But having said that, I think the reason I don't think there are many good horror films is I get something from horror films that most people don't, and most people aren't looking for in horror films. So most people in horror films, they like the jump scares. They want to be scared. Okay, so when I watch a horror film, I want an atmosphere. I want a mood. They say that the definition of the Gothic genre, at least in literature, I've heard this, I think this would apply to film as well, is where the atmosphere and the mood is almost like a character. It's almost a character in itself. So what are the three things in, normally I haven't looked into writing for a while now, but they say there's three things, isn't there? They say plot, characters, and something else, I think. But with Gothic, tell me what that third thing is in the comments below. But what they say with Gothic literature is there's four things. There's plot, characters, the thing I can't remember, and atmosphere, mood. Which is why Daphne du Maurier is often described as a Gothic author. Now, I would never have thought that, because I don't think of Gothic. I think of vampires, really. But Jamaica Inn is a moody novel. It's so moody, it drips mood. I find it quite depressing, actually. Having often frequented the real Inn, Jamaica Inn, and been in there, and I do love Daphne du Maurier. I find her fascinating. I think I've said before, I find her more interesting than I find her enjoyable as a novelist. Something really fascinates me about her. Check out my video where I accidentally discovered her old house, and there was something very unusual there. But anyway, that's a digression. This channel is full of digressions, and the digressions are juicier than the main course, as I said before. So Nefarious. So I heard a little bit about it. I've only heard that Catholic priests like it. Catholic exorcists like it because it's realistic. So I thought, I'm watching that. So lots of people don't like it because it's slow and because not that much happens. That's fine by me. Rosemary's Baby, slowest film ever, but it's mood, isn't it? The mood builds, and you've got all these characters, and they're all well acted, and they're quite fascinating, and I just get kind of hooked into into that slowly unraveling story. So slow's good as far as I'm concerned. So I'm a big Doctor Who fan as well, and I find that, you know, since the hiatus, it's all been, every episode has been wham bam, really fast paced and stuff. You actually go back to the classic series, it's so slow, so slow. You know, they would do a series, you know, so it might be like 6 episodes in a series, and less would happen than happens in a single kind of 40-minute or whatever it is episode of the new Who. So slow is good. So I like supernatural horror. I like slow horror. I like moody horror. I'm not particularly into gore. I can cope with some, you know, degree of gore, but I'm not particularly into gore. It's okay, you know. It's not something I seek out in a movie. So sometimes when there's not the, you know, there's a lot of people that have got very into the slasher genre. So when they watch a horror film, if there's no gore, then they're disappointed. So you'd be disappointed. There's some cringy bits in Nefarious, and some nasty bits, but you're not seeing blood and guts and people's innards and things like that, or, you know, people being stabbed and, you know, so on. The other thing I like about, because I like supernatural horror, the other thing I like is where it is realistic. Well, what do you mean realistic, Markie? You know, the supernatural is all made up. This is fiction. You know, how can you expect your horror films to be realistic? Well, I like it when, if you have a supernatural horror, I like it to be based on existing theories and beliefs that are out there. You know, who's to say whether they're true or not? So, for example, like Nefarious takes a very Roman Catholic kind of viewpoint. It was directed by Catholics, and it was kind of, I believe from what I've read, it was kind of put out as a form of proselytizing, which is another thing that people have objected to. They felt very preached at through watching the movie. But I get frustrated because if you look at religious, the theories of certain religions about demonic possession and how it works and how exorcism works and stuff like that, they're quite sexy. You know, they're good. You know, they're quite captivating, and what I find is that sometimes in fiction, people unnecessarily reinvent the wheel. And they'll have some kind of possession thing, but the possession doesn't work like possession seems to work according to the theories of the church, or according to what people have observed or reported. They go off in some other direction. I think, hey, what? And I think, why? You know, because you've got this. It's a bit like creating a fantasy world. You know, if you with a fantasy novel, world building is your thing, or a fantasy film, you have to world build. If you're setting your story in the real world, you don't have to world build. It's quite hard to say world build. Does that make sense? You have to decide how you're going to portray the real world, and you're going to put your own spin on the real world. You do that in thousands of ways. You know, that's lighting and music and characters, the whole thing. You know, you can no two real world movies have the same feel or portray the world in the same way, I would argue. But you don't have to kind of come up with a whole bunch of, you don't have to reinvent the laws of physics, and you don't have to decide what colour the sky is going to be and all that kind of stuff. You can just kind of crack on with it. And I think real world beliefs about the supernatural, and particularly when it comes to things like possession and stuff like that, if you're going to put them in a religious context as well, is go with the beliefs that are in existence, unless you can come up with something that's much more entertaining and much more interesting, thought-provoking. If you can come, so I'm not saying you have to slavishly, everybody should slavishly follow, make their horror films, Roman Catholic kind of friendly. You can go wherever you want. That's the great thing about speculative fiction. You can use your imagination, but unless you're going to come up with something better, don't reinvent the wheel. Just go with the religious and orthodoxy, or the religious and occult orthodoxy around these things, I would say. So I liked this movie. I love this movie because it's got all the things I like. It's got mood, an atmosphere, loads of that. It follows an orthodoxy. It follows an established belief system about what demons are and what possession is and that kind of thing. And I really like the acting. I mean, my God, the guy that played what was his name? Eddie Wayne Dyer. I don't know what his name was. Stroke the demon Nefarious. What brilliant acting! What fantastic acting! I was just lapping that up. I was just sitting there thinking, no, this is the film I've been waiting for years, But it's been slated, It's really been given sort of some bad reviews, but partly because people have felt preached to. I mean, I didn't worry about that really. I just got into it and enjoyed it for what it was. I've got 5 or 6 points that I want to make, and I haven't made any notes like I usually don't, so I'll probably forget 4 of them. I have to do a follow-on video, but I will try my best to nail down all the points. First of all, some things that I didn't like about it. So they might have got the kind of supernatural realism in inverted commas, because who knows whether that view is real or not. Might be, might not be. But real world realism, there are a few kind of slips. It's like, I'm pretty sure that, so there's going to be spoilers from now on, okay? So I don't think the detective would have been allowed to have his gun on him in that chamber. I really don't think he would have done. I'm from the UK originally, and police and officialdom is super careful and super sensible around anything to do with risk, firearms, that sort of thing. America can be a little bit more gung ho, but I still think in an American jail, I don't think they'd let that detective take his gun in. I think he'd check if he had it with him. And he doesn't need it with him, does he? Because he's turning up for an execution. He's not on patrol. I'm presuming, he's not going to be called anywhere. So he doesn't. First of all, he shouldn't need it, and secondly, if he does have it, he should, would have checked it in when he came into the prison. So that's that kind of stretched the credibility a little bit for me. And the other thing is the sheer lack of time that the psychiatrist has to do his report. Because having done I'm not a psychiatrist, but I've done comprehensive reports around the subject of mental health or related issues, and they take a long time. And you don't do it in one interview. There's several interviews. You do what they call collateral interviewing, where you interview people that know the person and give their opinion. And they cheated it a bit because he said he'd already read all the files, because there was a previous psychiatrist that had done most of the work. I suppose that's how they tried to cheat it, really, by saying that, he only needs to go once because the psychiatrist has done everything else. He only just needs to pop in and have a quick cup of tea with the prisoner, and then he'll be able to complete his assessment. The other thing is like psychometrics. They use psychometrics as well with these kind of things. So questionnaires that then need analysing afterwards. So in real life, it would have been very boring, wouldn't it? It was kind of that would have spoiled the film. So, so that's me being a bit picky, I think, on that one. But the detective's gun, I think, that was a bit of a. But they wanted to have that. That was a key scene, I guess, wasn't it? So they wanted to have that firearm there. So what else did I want to say? I thought so. One of the reasons I'm rubbish at reviews is I don't ever remember actors or actors' names or directors or anything like that. I've got a form of face blindness as well. So if I see an actor in one film and then they're in another film, I don't recognise them. In fact, quite often if there is an actor in one scene and then in another scene, I don't recognise them. So for that reason, I'm not ever going to be a professional film reviewer. The guy that played the psychiatrist, not the one at the start that died or was demonically induced to die, without using that S word. But the main character that goes throughout the film, I can't remember his name. I presume he's a well-known actor, but it just felt to me like he was like they wanted Tom Cruise and they got him to play it as Tom Cruise would play it. without being perhaps quite as starey-mary, because Tom Cruise just does too much staring, doesn't he? That's all he really does is staring. But he seemed a bit Tom Cruise-like to me. It's like when I watched the second the Wicker Man remake, which is not the Wicker Man. I need to do a review on that. But Nicolas Cage, to me, it felt like he was playing James Stewart. But then I haven't watched a lot of things with Nicolas Cage in, so I don't know if he's always like that or if he was just like that in that film. So that's an aside, really. Just I throw that one in. The other thing I wanted to say, and this I think is interesting, even though I say so myself, is I thought there was a touch of the Scottish play about Nefarious. So for those of you familiar with Macbeth, I don't mind saying it. If you don't hear any other videos from me, you'll know that I shouldn't have said it. So Shakespeare, I think that was the first Shakespeare play I ever studied. We did that at school, and I loved it because that's Gothic. Macbeth is Gothic. It's full of mood and atmosphere, and it's all it's a horror film, really. Macbeth. So Macbeth is met by the Weird Sisters, who everyone describes as witches. Now, my English teacher was adamant that we shouldn't call them witches because nowhere in the play, this is a tangent, nowhere in the play are they described as witches. I was going to do a whole video on this, actually. And I think she had a damn good point. Because they meet this kind of all the stereotypes of witches with the bubbling cauldron, and they've got familiars, haven't they? And I think they fly through the air. I don't think they fly on broomsticks, but they fly through the air. I think they do anyway. And the incantations and all that kind of thing. But they could just as easily be a representation of the three Norns. Norns, I think it's how you pronounce it, that which comes from Nordic mythology, which are actually similar to the three fates, which I think are Greek mythology. All these things, interestingly, often have a parallel, don't they? So the three Norns, I think, were kind of some kind of spirit, not kind of non-human, and I think they were female, spirits of prophecy, and I think that the reason there are three of them is past, present, and future, or something like that. There was a dolmen near where I used to live. It was called Spinster's Rock, or Spinster's Rocks. And that was, this is on Dartmoor, and that was associated with the three Norns, which is interesting. That's a great thing about the UK, is the mythology dates back to different eras and different cultures and different people. So some is Nordic, some is more recent, like you get medieval, and you get all different kind of phases of history, but you'll get the Celtic, and then you'll get the Saxon, and you'll get the Nordic, and they're all slightly different, but with parallels. So some folklore relates to Nordic, some relates to Celtic, or some seem to go all the way through. So the three Norns are associated with this particular place, which might be a hint that maybe it was used for prophecy at some point. So for those of you not familiar with the Scottish play, I won't say it twice. Spoiler for that as well is so the protagonist, eponymous protagonist is. It opens with the battle scene, and he's done very well. He's about to be rewarded, but he meets these three weird sisters, as they're called, and they give him three prophecies, and they're some of which are almost immediately fulfilled, and only the final one is left hanging in the balance, and he actually feels he has to do something to bring that about. Whereas actually there's a plot hole, I think, in it, really, because he ends up committing a murder, a regicide, in order to fulfill the prophecy. But if it's a prophecy, and you trust in that prophecy, he could have done nothing. He could have just, been a really nice guy, and helped little old ladies across the road, and done good things, and then he would have become king anyway. But the three was prophesied with three things, and in this, the demon Nefarious makes kind of three prophecies. One of which happens in that moment. Well, they all happened. They all happen in that moment, effectively. They all happen in the day that the film is set. So they're not things that happen way off in the future. They're all rapidly fulfilled prophecies. And it's three prophecies, three Norns, three prophecies. past, present, future, maybe. So I thought that was, I don't know if that was conscious or unconscious, probably unconscious, because he's subliminally imbibe these things, don't we, and then we spit them out when we do some creative work. So so that was good. What else did I want to say? So Tom Cruise, the three prophecies of Macbeth. Oh, I said it again. The Catholic perspective and the fact that it conforms to an orthodoxy of belief, if not reality. That was the other thing I wanted to say. Now, this is interesting because it's funny how history repeats itself, doesn't it? So John Milton's Paradise Lost, which tells the story of Lucifer as he was the most beloved angel and the highest ranking angel, suffers with pride, falls out with God or gets resentful at God, talks a bunch of the other angels into a coup d'etat, and then gets chucked out of heaven, and then has to decide what he's going to do. He has to kind of reinvent himself. And there's a sort of story of how he does that. He's in hell, and he kind of gathers himself and the other fallen angels, and he was criticised in that for because he's come out of a very Puritan. But I believe he was actually Oliver Cromwell's personal secretary or something, John Milton. But he writes this book, which is I can't remember, is it? It's a long time since I did this one at school as well, so it's a long time. Is it a poem? Is it like a narrative poem, or is it? I think it's a narrative poem, isn't it? Paradise Lost. But the story of it was accused of sympathy for the devil, because he makes Lucifer stroke Satan into a very heroic character, which is interesting because most I've done videos on Satanism as well. Most real life satanic organizations don't believe in Satan, contrary to popular opinion, and that would make for really boring, accurate, orthodox horror films as well. The satanic cult, they don't raise the devil because they don't believe in him, but they see him as a symbol for rebellion and individualism, and that's kind of what happened with Milton. It made Satan look good, and I thought the demon kind of came off well in this. But then I'm weird. I quite often root for the baddie in the films, or the crazy person, or the what I say crazy person, Basil Fawlty, in Fawlty Towers. You're supposed to laugh at him, aren't you? But I feel huge empathy for him. I feel like, when he kind of loses it and does stupid things or rants at people, I kind of think, well, yeah, he has to put up with all these idiots around him. Why wouldn't he do that? I suppose this demon's a little bit worse than Basil Fawlty. But there was just something so charismatic about the way it was acted. And also convincing, which is interesting because it was put across as a Christian message, but it sounded quite convincing in the way he said that, God was the first one God caused the problem by giving us free will and then not accepting us. Well, I can't remember the exact thing, but giving us free will and then kind of punishing us when we use it or something like that, and then being unforgiving. So I was kind of on his side from that point, but I didn't, but it's cruelty. Yeah, I did feel for the endemoniac, which is a proper name for somebody that's possessed, by the way. I mean, it might not be English, that might be another language. The endemoniac, the real character of Edward, the cruelty that he was treated with. But the fact that to me, the demonic hosts aren't really evil. It depends how you define evil, really. But I would say they're pretty amoral rather than immoral, because, like he says, they're torturing humans, not for its own sake, not because they're sadistic and it's fun. They're doing it because it pisses God off, and they're really not happy with God. They're mostly they want to take God to industrial tribunal. So I liked the character. I liked that, you know, I was on the side of the demon, although I didn't like his cruelty to Eddie. And I thought I was going to say the crucifixion scene, but it's, you know, well, there's a parallel, isn't there? The execution scene, that was horrible, wasn't it? That wasn't an easy watch. So I really felt sorry for the real guy, and just how everyone was pushing him around and being disrespectful to him, and you know, even. And with the cruelty from the demon, like denying him his last meal, even, you know, oh, that's so cruel. The thing with the finger, that is so cruel. So cruel. So I shouldn't have any sympathy really for the devil, but I did, and I don't know whether that's because of the good actor or there's something perverse about him. I look like the devil, don't I? I mean, red high collar shirt, red and black. It sounds like it looks like I'm sitting in a crimson red throne. But no, I'm not satanic. So yeah, that was the other point really. Did it backfire a little bit in terms of it wanting to give a Christian message? Did it backfire? So as to the point of it being too preachy, well, it managed to throw in abortion, didn't it? Which is a hot topic. It's always a really big topic in America as well. American politics always seems to hinge on abortion and assisted dying. Which are they're very Catholic things, but the Protestants get very hung up on that as well. It's funny, Americans, you know, with its Christian values and its sort of antipathy to abortion, but it's love of guns and the death penalty. So that seems, as a non-American looking in, you do look weird. I'm sorry, but you do look odd. Your values are kind of quite, I'm sure you'll be able to explain that to me. But did I find it preachy? No. I think I just went over the top of my head, really. I kind of, I went into it for an enjoyable story. I got very quick, you know, I knew from the start, I suppose, that it was coming from a Catholic perspective. So I kind of expected that, I suppose, and didn't let it bother me. If I come to the film in a slightly different way or a different mindset, maybe it would have done. But they were the main criticisms. It was slow, not much happened, and it was preachy. But that dialogue, the intensity of that dialogue at the start, I was just thinking, this is the film I've been waiting for since Rosemary's Baby. So I've probably forgotten some key points that I was going to make, but I've already gone on for half an hour, so I will shut up now. Now, if you disagree with me, fantastic. It's great when people disagree, particularly around films and art and stuff like that, because then you can talk about it. But if you're one of these dumb fucks that just makes a comment like, "Oh, you're an idiot, it was a bad film," you won't last very long in my comments section. You will be wiped, and I will steal your immortal soul. But if you want to say, "Oh, I don't agree because X, Y, and Z," and raise some points, I'll read that, and I might even change my mind, because my mind is always open, or I like to think it is. Or if I've misinterpreted anything or got anything wrong, you know, tell me politely, and we'll all have a nice chat. Because it's a movie. It's about, well, I suppose it depends the way you look at it, doesn't it? If you look at it as a religious message, and I guess it's very serious and very important. If you look at it as a movie, it's a piece of entertainment. I'm looking at it as a piece of entertainment, but not everyone will look at it that way. A lot of people will look at it as a serious Christian message. So you might, you know, have a whole different mindset. But we can still have a chat anyway. And I'm very interested in religion. And so I've done lots of videos on religion and theology and occult and all sorts of stuff like that. So check out my playlist for those if you're interested. Check out my playlist for reviews if you like my haphazard, very unprofessional movie reviewing style. And check out all the playlists, because this channel is a smorgasbord of all kinds of different things. So there's something for everyone. So if you check out the playlists, you can get to what you enjoy more quickly. And I hope you will. So thank you for joining me on this ramble. Sorry, I seem to be subliminally dressed as the devil in a satanic throne. But, you know, please don't read anything into that. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for bearing with me. Rangimarie.